Hey there, I'm Patty Dominguez. You're about to discover what it means to position your brand and your business to stand out. This show explores the stories of small business owners just like you who are bringing their message out to the world and impacting their tribe. So if you want to take your business to a category of one status, then hang with me because this podcast shares everything you need to know about how to be more prolific with your brand so that you can have more profits. Hey there, welcome. My name is Patty Dominguez. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode of my new podcast called Positioning to Profit. I'm going to tell you just a little bit or share with you a little bit about what's been going on and the epiphany that I had last year in 2019 and just really coming full circle on a lot of different things and why I decided to change the direction of this podcast. First and foremost, thank you for checking out this podcast, like I mentioned. Why? Because I love podcasting. It is such a great way to connect. And whether you're listening to me while you're riding your bike or on a walk or in the car, I just really appreciate the fact that somebody is taking the time to listen. So for that, I appreciate you. The other thing is for the people that have been asking, hey, what happened to your podcast? Last year, I launched a podcast called Her Legacy Podcast. And I am no stranger to podcasting. I absolutely love podcasting. In fact, in 2015, a friend of mine and I, we created the Boss 3 Society podcast. And the messaging behind that podcast was all around fire your boss hole, and leaving corporate. And the reason why I did that was because at the time I left my corporate job, I worked one day in January of 2013, and then I quit my job. And a lot of people would have asked me, hey, how did you do it? And I would say, well, what do you mean how did I do it? I just quit my job. But fact of the matter is I did prepare for it. I did have some very careful thought around how to leave my job. So the whole angle, the whole direction of that podcast had everything to do with the different entrepreneurs that we would meet along the way, highlighting what they were doing and why they were so proud to be boss free, And that podcast had about 150 episodes in total. And we're really proud of that because it was so much fun to do. Fast forward, I reconnected with the concept of podcasting. I never thought that I wouldn't do another podcast, to be perfectly honest. So I thought about Her Legacy Podcast, and I launched it in January of 2019. And the direction behind that one was as a woman business owner, I really contemplated just how empowering it was and important it is to highlight other women in business. And I did about 30 episodes, loved interacting, engaging, connecting with the women business owners that I was featuring on my podcast. And I'm so thankful to them for being a part of that. But behind the scenes, I was always like, the message here is just a little bit off and I don't know what it is. I'm not necessarily feeling congruent with the message. So I was kind of teetering. Should I continue it? Should I not? And it just felt off. And here's the deal. Here's what I know for sure, to quote Mama O. Here's what I know for sure is that when it's feeling like it's not the right way to go, that's your intuition telling you absolutely should be pivoting. So I said, okay, well, let me put the podcast on the back burner and let me just deep dive and understand what should be coming to me. What is the message that I should be talking about? Well, at the same time, I was noticing that one of the conversations that I would have over and over and over again with my coaching clients or prospective coaching clients or conversations that I would have, it was around the next course. People were buying the next thing. They had this addiction to, because I've been guilty of it, y'all, the next thing. How to do Facebook ads, how to do this, how to do that, how to do here, how to do there. And the fact of the matter is, one of the most important elements of what was missing was positioning. So at the same time, I had this massive epiphany. I know this sounds almost ridiculous. For so long, being an entrepreneur and on my own since January of 2013, I was rejecting the idea that I had ever been in corporate. I was like, no, that's my former self. You know what I mean? It was like I had this concept in my head that I burned the boats and I didn't want to look back. And when I decided to do that, I literally gave all my work clothes to Salvation Army. I didn't want to have anything to do with corporate. Not because I was ashamed of it by any means. I learned so much and it was responsible for a lot of my growth. But what I wanted to do was unleash like the shackles of corporate. And so I took it so literally that I didn't want to really engage with that side of myself of all the things that I had learned. And one of the things that I'm really thankful for, kind of that crossroads of the big epiphany, was that in corporate, we would go through this extensive thought process. And I was privy to sit in on different meetings when it came to new product introductions, whether it was an entirely new product for the biggest brands in the world. And I had the ability to participate and just kind of be a fly on the wall in some cases, or just see the different genius of the products that were being developed and the exploratory conversations and the immense amount of rigor that would take place when it came to something like a new product introduction. And I started talking about it more and more. And I really recognized that in the small business arena, nobody's talking about positioning. And so what happens is that a lot of people go off on their way to start their own business, to be a coach, and they get their certifications, or they write a book and they have that under their belt. But the whole process of positioning is not even entertained. So it's like this unknown thing. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't have your positioning nailed down, what happens is you participate in random acts of marketing. And so I started to see more of that. And then I had these conversations with some mentors of mine around the concept of, hey, should I be talking about positioning more? I mean, does that make sense to you? And they said, yeah, that's actually pretty baller, because if you start talking about positioning and you kind of are known as a positioning person, then, you've crafted a niche for yourself, So I was like, okay, I'm going to be talking more about this. And so I just started really thinking about the importance of positioning, because I went back and I crafted this webinar, and then I made this presentation. I had the opportunity to present this concept about positioning to profit on more than one occasion. And it was hitting the mark. It was like, it makes so much sense. Because think about it. I talk about in my presentations around the difference between rational value and intrinsic value. And by rational value, I mean, if you look at a bowl of ice cream, you're buying ice cream, right? For maybe $2.50 at the restaurant. Well, maybe a little bit more expensive in this day and age, but you're buying a bowl of ice cream. The ice cream is the rational value. Well, what happens to that same bowl of ice cream when you start putting the whipped cream on it and nuts and sprinkles and the hot fudge, probably not in that order, but the hot fudge and all the other elements that make you go, ooh, ah, the ooh, ah sensation. And then you're like, okay, that same deal, that costs $10.95, right? Why? Because the intrinsic value of it, like you've made it special. You've made it ooh, ah. And that's what is the difference between rational value as you're a coach, and then the intrinsic value is how you position yourself. So that's really what I want to be talking about in this new rendition of my podcast. I changed the name to Positioning to Profit. I'm going to be sharing with you through the 18 years of corporate experience that I had, plus being an entrepreneur since 2013. Oh my gosh, I'm going into 2 decades and a half worth of experience that I'm basically going to be sharing with you so that you can position yourself for more profit. And in that, I'll be interviewing women and men this time, so not just women, and how they position themselves when somebody has pivoted their business, when they have carved out their niche or niche, however you say it, when they have stood out among the rest, when they have really developed the status of category of one. And at the same time, I want to share with you the importance of embracing the things that make you special. Because here's the deal. I believe positioning has 2 elements to it. It has an internal element and an external element. By external, I mean, sure, I can teach you my formula for positioning to profit. It's a proprietary method that I have. It's called prolific positioning. But within that, you can take that very format, that very framework, create positioning statement for yourself and all these other elements that are absolutely necessary for positioning. So you get that nailed down, you're good to go. But the difference is that if you don't have your internal positioning nailed down, and I call that one neuro repositioning, what's going to happen is that your business results will always meet your identity. Always, every single time, no matter what. So how is my positioning different? Well, I talk about internal and external positioning, because the deal is we as small business owners who are forging out on our own, there has to be that alignment, both from an internal perspective and external. And once you have that, you can position yourself for more profit. So there you have it. That's what I'm going to be talking about, positioning to profit. And I hope you join me next time, because I have some really cool things in store. So there you have it. That is my big announcement. My new podcast is called Positioning to Profit. And my intention is to help guide you so that you can create your category of one status, making the competition irrelevant and positioning yourself for more profit. All right, guys, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for checking out the Positioning to Profit podcast. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new episodes. And also, it would mean the world to me if you would take a quick moment to leave a rating and review on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcast player. It really helps to get the word out about the podcast and, of course, the featured guests. And lastly, please make sure to connect with me on social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, I'm on all of them, and use hashtag positioning to profit so that I can search you out and connect that way too. All right, thanks so much. See you next time.